Great to have you with us. Now, just before we entered into this bulletin, we received the news that the 2 suspected cases of coronavirus, which were recorded at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital here in Accra, have tested negative. The samples were sent from the hospital to the Noguchi Memorial Institute yesterday at about 6 p.m. So the institute could verify whether or not these 2 cases are of novel coronavirus. Now, of course, these 2 gentlemen, an Argentine and a Chinese, according to my colleague Fred Smith, were held in a holding room from yesterday after one left unnoticed to buy food. There's more in the following updates we got a while ago.
It's a big day here at the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. The nation's eye is here. Everybody is waiting to hear the news of 2 men being held here at the Accident and Emergency Center. They want to know if symptoms they have showed here are those of the coronavirus disease. Noguchi Memorial Center for... No. Okay, let me restart so I can just...
We'll go to Fred later on for the latest updates, but Minister for Information Kojo Ofonkroma has asked the public with credible information of government officials deemed corrupt to submit their evidence for investigations. This follows some public reaction to swift referral of the Airbus bribery saga to the Office of Special Prosecutor, despite outstanding corruption allegations yet to be acted on. He spoke to Roland Walker on the AM show.
So what informs this view? That's the first question. And second question is, what is the real, true, unemotive, sustainable, that's the word you used earlier, answer to fighting corruption? The sustainable, unemotive answer to fighting corruption is about 2 or 3-fold. One, you build strong institutions. Where in this country, when in 1991, the framers of our constitution figured this out and put it in the constitution. We all pretend we don't know it until Barack Obama comes to say, build strong institutions. We're all clapping that, hey, Obama said something extraordinary. We know it. Build strong institutions. Apart from building strong institutions, let these institutions work, i.e., when there's an incident or a report or a suspicion, we must demand it of all ourselves that these reports must be made to these strong institutions we have built, and these institutions must be challenged to work.
You think that's what's going on?
That is what is going on and what we should encourage. And let me explain. For example, on President Akufo-Addo's watch, he says that, listen, when you have an incident of corruption or you have an allegation of corruption, I'm going to have it investigated by various bodies, whichever is appropriate. If it's, for example, corruption so properly suspected, like in the case of this Airbus matter, the Office of the Special Prosecutor, which is seized with a legal mandate to deal with corruption, and you see it's been referred to them to investigate the matter. If it is, let's say, general allegations that you need to properly sift out, is it a matter of corruption or stealing or is whatever, there's a police ID, etc., which you make available to them. So on his watch, not only is he better supporting the anti-corruption institutions like SHRAJ, you can call Mr. Joe Whittal of SHRAJ and ask him. Their financing and budgetary allocations have gone up. Nobody's interfering with their work. You can check from IOCO. Leadership has been changed. Financing is being made available. You can check from the Office of the Special Prosecutor. They are, it didn't used to exist. It now exists. They are getting more resources. These institutions are being built. Now, what do we all have to do? Do we all go around just repeating, oh, corruption is going up, perception of corruption is going up? Or do we now also do our part, which is A, if you have evidence, we challenge you, don't come sit on the TV and just repeat it because you think it's political expedient.
That is, whip it up.
Go and make that report and back it with your... And this Airbus matter is, it might be one of the biggest international level disgraces that Ghana is going through. Not even the Maybe and Johnson scandal. Check the amount of money in the Maybe and Johnson scandal. It doesn't come anywhere close to what happened or what the British and American and French courts are saying happened in this Airbus matter. The president, the government, discharged their obligations within the first 24 hours by referring the matter to the Office of the Special Prosecutor to act on it. I haven't heard, for example, civil society groups in this country even issue a joint statement. I'm sure you've seen them issue joint statements lately on various matters.
Well, here, we're speaking to anti-corruption bodies. Adam Senano, for example, leads one of them.
I haven't heard them issue one of their joint statements that even express worry that the name of Ghana and Ghanaian government officials...
Is there no government that's supposed to act on it? And the president, rightly, has decided to allow the special prosecutor to do
its part. Where are the civil society
What do you
groups?
Want them to do?
I expect them by now to be expressing worry Even that.
Away from that story, customers of the Ghana Water Company Limited in most parts of the Western region must brace themselves for further extension of the ongoing water rationing. For decades, the region has been experiencing acute water shortage during the dry season, which drastically affects daily water production. Averagely, the company produces about 4.5 million gallons of water a day during the peak seasons, but it is now producing as low as 2.3 million gallons per day, which falls short of meeting the demand of consumers in the region. To improve production, however, the company has begun dredging its raw water intake point at Daboase to draw more raw water for treatment and onward distribution. Engineer Vincent Opokuwari-Donko, who is the Western Regional Production Manager of the Ghana Water Company, has been speaking to media after a facility tour of the Daboase intake point.
For our average, the design capacity of the plant is 27,000 cubic meters. And normally we do 22,000 as the average production per day. But currently we are doing about 16,000 of the average production. So it tells you that the production is a little bit down. So if you look at the situation now, the weather itself has having an effect on the volume of water that we can draw. We are currently in the dry season, and with the dry season we have a lot of evaporation because the weather is very dry. So most of the water is taken out. The river spans about 3 regions. Okay. That the Pra, so goes through Ashanti region. I think from Brahafo region through Ashanti, through Central, then through Western to the sea. Yeah, so we are the last point of the river. So activities that happens upstream definitely affects us.
Now, the GWCL, meanwhile, says the activities of illegal miners on the Pra River is affecting costs of treating water.
We should know that if you look at the color of the water, it tells you that we have a lot of silt inbuilt, and we also have the turbidity very high. So even if you draw the water, you are going to take part of it, you are going to throw part of it away because you have a lot of silt, or the turbidity is very high, and we need to maintain our standards. So you might draw as we used to do during the rainy season, but because of the turbidity, about 15% of the water had to be thrown away in order to be able to get the water clean for consumption. Hopefully by the close of the week, the dredging would have been completed. We've done, let's say, about 45% of the dredging. We're hoping by Friday we should be through with the dredging, and we'll have enough water to produce, and we are hoping that production is going to improve, and the water situation in town will also improve. Normally, our average production per day, a cubic meter, is about 1.2 cedis a day. Currently, we need to apply more chemical. We run our equipment. Electricity is high, but the production is low. So if you do the computation, we are doing about 2 cedis per cubic meter.
It's still live on JoyNews today. Let's get back to the capital now. And JoyNews editor Fred Smith, who heads the health desk, is following the coronavirus scare that struck the nation yesterday. Let's head over to Fred now, who is stationed at the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. Fred, tell us again the latest from this test. Fred, what more have you gathered? We understand that these 2 gentlemen have tested negative for coronavirus.
Yes, Daniel, indeed, that's information we are just receiving from the Gucci Memorial Institute for Medical Research. We are told by public health officials managing this case that the 2 men both tested negative for the coronavirus disease. That's some good news for us, but this is the preliminary results we've got from the Noguchi Memorial Institute for Medical Research.
Fred, tell us about the work that has been put in place aside from the tests. We understand that the Kolebu Teaching Hospital Accident and Emergency was on lockdown for a while. Has that been opened?
Well, I've been here since morning. I have not seen that particular situation. The accident and emergency has been up and running. Patients are coming in. The workers are moving up and down. I did not see the lockdown. What I am told, however, is the fact that last night the place was on a lockdown.
So where are the patients now?
Well, they are being held at the fevers unit of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital. I've been to that area also to assess, but there are restrictions because of the risk of contamination. So they are being kept in an area where people are not allowed to access, but they are within the confines of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital after one of them left the facility last night.
And you were saying that one left the facility to buy food.
Yes, indeed. That's what we were told. When the information we received from the doctors who are working here was that the Chinese man, there are two, one is Chinese, the other is Argentine. The Chinese man, we are told, is a banker, and he felt that he was okay. He left to go and buy food, as the head of public relations at Kolebu told me, Mustafa Salifu. He says he left to go and buy food, but he came back to the facility. But we have also been told by other doctors that he actually left the facility, went home, and the police was brought in to go and get him back to the facility. And so there are conflicting reports that we're getting from that. But as we speak, the two men are at Kolebu Teaching Hospital under quarantine.
Fred, I see a police vehicle in the shots there just behind you. Were the police involved in this?
Well, we have always been told by officials that the police is not involved, but we are seeing the presence of the police here very strong on the premises of the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, Daniel.
Right. Tell us about the atmosphere. Yesterday, we understand that the head of public health actually described it as malicious panic, the state that the hospital was in yesterday. Tell us a bit more about the workers and how they're feeling.
Well, Daniel, your question is not clear to me. If you can repeat.
We were told by officials of the hospital that there was malicious panic at the hospital yesterday. Now that we know these cases are not novel coronavirus, how's the atmosphere like? How are the people feeling?
Well, Daniel, I cannot hear your question, but if you're asking me about that meeting by the health officials regarding this outbreak, that meeting is still ongoing. We are expecting the Director General of the Ghana Health Service to attend the meeting. We are also expecting other officials from the Ghana Health Service to be part of this meeting. This, we are told, should happen any moment from now.
Fred, thanks. It seems like we have a difficulty with the line, but thank you very much for joining us with that update. We stay with, we'll move to other stories now. The Africa Center for Energy Policy, ACEP, has always talked energy, but today there appears to be something equally important to the civil society group, and that's disability. ACEP says an estimated 900,000 people living with disabilities in Ghana are often excluded in social integration systems in the country. ACEP accessed interventions already made by the government and various stakeholders and proposed recommendations. Executive Director Benjamin Boache calls on the government to pay attention to persons with disability, especially those known to be mentally unstable. He was speaking at the launch of a disability interventions mapping report by the Africa Center for Energy Policy.
So what we did was to understand what is happening in the disability space. Over the past year, we've been trying to see how the expenditure and utilization of our resources actually benefits everybody. And one of the segments of society that we identified to be marginalized was persons with disability. In essence, what we're going to do into the future is just to encourage the movement to be more forthcoming in the advocacy space, to engage policymakers, to ensure that together we can assist. If you look at the Petroleum Revenue Management Law, it recognizes that we have to prioritize investment in areas that impact on persons with disability, but not much is being done. Generally, everybody have a problem. All the groupings have problems, but mental health really is the most challenged. We don't have programs that are targeting mental health issues, so that is a particular area that we think government can look at. The blind. I mean, if you want to go to secondary school, you have to come all the way to Akrapim. Whether you're in the north, or east, or west, there is only one school. We have to create that opportunity for people who are visually impaired to be able to also access education. If you look at ramps that are being provided in buildings for persons with disability, it's poorly delivered in many projects that we actually visited. We try to assess oil-funded projects to see how compliant those accessibility ramps were, and they were poorly delivered. Most of them were poorly delivered, just to tick the box and not really to provide access to persons with disability.
Meanwhile, the Director for Policy and Evaluation at the Ministry for Gender, Children and Social Protection says there are ongoing discussions on the Disability Act, which should be passed into a bill, which should be passed into law before elections.
Most of the provisions that has to do with the living environments, employment, etc., are all being reviewed. This currently the report that ASEP has produced. Okay. We're looking at that report, and those sections that make some recommendations which brought down on some sections of the Act review are going to be incorporated because all the partners are on board. It's being led by the National Council of Persons with Disability, and representatives have been brought from all the organizations. So we've been on it for quite some time now. I know we have a couple of meetings. Even the last 2 weeks, we had some 2 meetings, and this week on Thursday and Friday, we're going to have another session again with them. We are going clause by clause. So very soon, by the end, I'm sure by the end of this session, by the end of this week, we would have finished going through that. Our expectation is that it will go to Cabinet and go to Parliament and then pass into law before Cabinet rises this session. But we are very much aware there's going to be elections this year, and a new Parliament will come into place. If we don't do that now, then it means that we have to wait for the next Parliament. But we are very, very confident that this year, 2020, before Parliament rises, we'll have this law, this bill passed into a revised Act for Disability.
Speaking of Parliament, the Speaker, Professor Michael Quay, has pulled brakes on efforts by government to push through a $993 million hydro, solar and irrigation dam in Polugu. The minority says the project is bloated and fraudulent and they won't support it. The Finance Committee has presented a report to the House recommending approval. The minority threatened a boycott if the House debated the issue. The Speaker pulled brakes on attempts by the majority to push it through to give MPs adequate time to study the report. Joseph Opoku-Gakpo joins us. Joseph, what's the background to this story?
And so this document requesting for approval for this project, which
pardon me, Joseph, you would have to speak
was
up.
laid on the floor of Parliament
Joseph,
on December
pardon me, we can hardly hear you
last year. And the indication was that even as the House returned from its sitting, the necessary deliberations on it would have been done. And so the Finance Committee is back to the House with a report recommending approval. But the minority says they've done their checks, and what they gather is that the project is bloated by at least $150 million. That's the figure that John Jinappo actually pushed to it. And so they are going to resist it. The majority, led by Matthew Nyindam, the first deputy chief whip, sought to push it through this morning. But the speaker said that although he wouldn't allow for a situation where the minority would stampede processes in the House, he would want to give it a few more days from now until Tuesday for the majority and the minority to sort out their differences, after which they should return to the House and debate it next week.
Thank you very much. So that means that next week, the majority have another opportunity to convince the minority of the viability of this deal. So
what is expected to happen is that at the level of the Finance Committee, they would have to relook at it, because the minority MPs are claiming that when the majority side called a meeting to deliberate on it, none of the minority MPs were actually invited. And so if you look at the report that comes to the floor, the approval is coming just from MPs on the majority side. And so the expectation rather is that over the duration between now and Tuesday, at the level of the Finance Committee, and it was referred to the Finance Committee, the Agricultural Committee, and the Mines and Energy Committee, they would collectively sit together alongside those on the minority side to deliberate on it and return to the floor with a consensus, so that then both sides will be able to debate the issue on Tuesday. Thank you very much, Joseph Opoku Gakpo, for joining us with those updates. It's still live on Joy News Today. I am Daniel Dazi. We'll be right back. Thanks for staying with us. Now, the Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority, Sylvester Tete, has registered his displeasure on the delay in the construction of a youth resource center in the whole, in Nuenon of the whole Adaklu Road in the Volta region. He therefore directed the contractor, Wilcado Construction Limited, to increase human resource on the site to meet the March 2020 deadline. Correspondent Fred Kwame Asari reports.
Construction works commenced on the 2.4 million Youth Resource Center in March 2018 and was expected to be ready after 9 months. Nonetheless, the facility is yet to be completed after 20 months of work by Wilcado Construction Limited. So far, structural works are almost completed on the 5,000 capacity spectator stands, while preliminary works are being done on the pitch. The Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Authority, Sylvester Tete, though was satisfied with the quality of work after touring the site, was unhappy with construction delays.
That quality of work is not in doubt. I mean, a good job is being done, but we have so much to be worried about with respect to the pace of work. We have timelines, and we've agreed with them to hand over the site to us for phase 2 to begin by end of March. I'm not too happy about it, and I'm not sure management is happy about it. We're going to engage the contractor. I believe they are going around. We need more hands on site to finish on this work on time. The young people can't wait, the president can't wait, the Ghanaian people can't wait. The more it delays, the more cost it is to all of us. Because the phase 2, we don't want it to get into the rainy season. And that's what we are running, that we should hand over the site for work on phase 2 to begin. And the state of the land here, if phase 2 is going to begin and is going to the rainy season, we're going to have this problem.
However, the site engineer for Wilcado Construction Limited, Lord Senasanti, assured of timely delivery of the project.
Considering the remaining works to be done, and we are also factoring in, because we are doing most of our works off-site, when all those works come on site, fixing becomes very easy. So I can boldly say that 85%. For the work left now, most of them are on the pitch. The pipe works that we need to do to channel, so that whenever it rains, water don't stay on the pitch for more than 10 minutes. And also we have some balustrade to be done. Well, I think we are going to increase our labor force in order to meet the deadline.
The center, when completed, would have a FIFA standard football pitch, 8-lane athletics track, table tennis, handball, and other courts. It would also house an ICT, entrepreneurship and counseling centers, and a restaurant. Fred Kwame Asari, Joy News, Nuenon.
Cassava farmers and workers of the Ayensu starch factory thronged the streets of Bojuase, demanding for it to be reopened after closure 4 years ago. The workers carried placards driving home their demands. According to them, that is the only viable company that could provide jobs for residents. More on that in later bulletins. Now, in our final story before business, over the past 25 years, the multimedia group's focus has been about impact on a society in dire need of change. For example, in the year 2016, our documentary team uncovered for the first time extensive congestion in Ghana's prisons and the inhumane treatment prisoners are subjected to. The JoyNews series by Seth Kwame Boateng was captured in 2 documentaries titled Locked and Forgotten and Left to Rot. As we celebrate our silver jubilee, JoyNews editor Fifi Kumse looks back on the impact of the documentaries that sparked major reforms in Ghana's prisons.
The documentaries Locked and Forgotten and Left to Rot were a game changer in the advocacy for reforms in Ghana's prison systems. Across the country, thousands of inmates remained crammed in tiny little spaces in the prisons. Their cases had not been determined, no criminal verdict pronounced, but they were held in the most inhumane of conditions. It's a situation prison officials could do very little about. But they found a great partnership in JoyNews. Seth Kwame Boateng was on the beat. Following the revelations, the then Chief Justice, Justice Georgina Theodora Wood, was moved. She reactivated the Justice for All program, a policy to try cases right in the prisons and speed up justice delivery.
I have decided to speak to you on this, given the centrality of the issue to the hearts of Ghanaians and my own lamentations following the graphic images presented by the recent media documentary of Mr. Seth Kwame Boateng of Joy FM, and in respect of which I make the following suggestion. Unless it would disturb your appetites, and I doubt that it would, knowing that lawyers or persons in the legal profession are made of strong staff, may I suggest we watch part, if not the entire abridged version of this thought-provoking documentary.
President at the time, John Mahama, pushed the campaign even further, promising to champion more reforms in the prisons.
It is not easy to be locked away. It is a difficult thing, but the worst thing of all is to be locked away and to be forgotten. The message I bring you today is that you're not forgotten, and I've seen with my own 2 eyes what I have heard many a time about the conditions in our prisons. And I'd like to thank the 2 journalists that were acknowledged by your representative when he spoke, because I think those documentaries touched the hearts of people.
The reactivated Justice for All program saw judges deployed to the prisons across the country. Chairman of the program, Justice Clemens Honyenuga, said the reforms meant a great impact on Ghana's prisons.
We sat on 458 cases, and then we released a total of 150, which include those we discharged, those we granted bail, and those we convicted on minor offenses. The Chief Justice has allocated a secretariat. We're going to have a secretariat. The office has been allocated, and the necessary renovation is being done. And very soon we are going to have the secretariat
for Justice for All
program. It's going to be a secretariat, national secretariat for it, for which they have been appointed a director to man that secretariat. And secondly, the Chief Justice in wisdom has appointed 2 judges from every region to now be in charge of the program, so that it will not be necessary for us to be traveling all the way from Accra to the regions.
The Chief Justice also ensured that refresher courses were organized for all judges and magistrates across the country.
Now, Chief Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Prison Service, Superintendent Courage Achem, has praised JoyNews for its role in improving the prisons service. He has been outlining some of the developments seen at the various prisons after the JoyNews documentaries on congestion in Ghana's prisons.
The documentary actually brought to the fore the acute congestion in most of our prisons, and ever since it has also drawn government's attention and the public attention to the congestion. Everywhere people discuss the congestion issues, and therefore a number of programs have also been put in place. As we speak, there is a remand prison under construction by government, because at first, as we have it now, we have remand population also in the same facility with the convicts, which is not the best practice. And so, following the documentary, government has also taken the step to establish a separate prison purposely for remands, which is currently under construction at an advanced stage of completion, I might say, in some medium security prison. And then also the Church of Pentecost has also come on board with the offer of establishing 5 camp prisons. As we speak, we have one under construction at Nsawam, another under construction at Ejura, and today there was a sword cutting ceremony at Damongo, also for another camp prison by the Church of Pentecost, which are all part of the 5 that they have promised to do for us. And so I must say these are some of the positive developments that we are seeing following that documentary.
And we say thank you to all of you for the support over the past 25 years. Coming up in business, economists attribute success of Eurobond sales to recent Moody's rating. Daryl Crow has more.